Welcome to Setting Up a Xanatos Gambit, Part 10 of the Practical Decision Making course offered by the Guild of the Rose. Visit guildoftheRose.org for more details. A Xanatos Gambit, named after the villain in the cartoon Gargoyles, is, according to TV tropes, a plan for which all foreseeable outcomes benefit the creator, including ones that superficially appear to be failure. The creator predicts potential attempts to thwart the plan and arranges the situation such that the creator will ultimately benefit even if their adversary succeeds in stopping them. It might seem like such a plan would fall firmly in the domain of fiction. In reality, we can't create plans where failure is literally impossible, but you can probably get closer than you think. A successful real-life Xanatos Gambit, that is to say, a plan that almost can't fail, does not mean an elaborately complicated plan involving many consecutive steps. If you have a plan involving 3 consecutive steps, and you're 90% confident in the success of each individual step, then the odds that all 3 steps will succeed is 73%. If you've been fool enough to chain together 7 consecutive steps, each with 90% chance of success, then your overall chance of success has dropped below 50%. If you just look around, we simply don't appear to live in a world that looks like planning as a concept works very well. Corporations and nation-states talk about 20-year strategic plans, but industries and political realities shift over much shorter horizons. Did anyone have a plan that was robust to the disruption of COVID-19? Big achievements resulting from a long-term, careful, preordained plot are rare. Usually success is the result of making the right call at the right time as serendipitous and unexpected opportunities arise. We have to think about plans differently than the naive view. Instead, we want to stick to some very basic principles of strategy. Number 1, understand how broadly you can define success. Number 2, try many separate paths toward that success in parallel. Number 3, prefer paths with high resultant optionality, unless you can just win now, and assiduously avoid catastrophic fail states. Number 4, reevaluate your progress at regular intervals in an OODA loop and keep your eyes open. Number 5, avoid zero-sum games. Let's expand on each of these tenets. Number 1, defining success broadly. If you have defined success to an appropriate degree of broadness, perhaps by repotting an important goal, then you are free to quickly pivot to other outcomes that might look very different from what you originally had in mind. Discovering that the swath of outcomes that look like success is very broad opens up far more possible avenues by which you can get to a favorable destination. In this way, your ability to succeed is limited only by your creativity in finding valuable end states. Number 2, try many separate paths in parallel. Pursuing multiple paths to success in parallel means that failure along one path isn't devastating, and surprising synergies between parallel lines of effort can emerge. You are usually not so resource constrained that you must choose one approach or another, and having multiple converging paths means that you can take each plan more lightly, which is psychologically healthy. Contrast the math of multiple parallel plans with the math of sequential steps in a complex plan. If you have 2 parallel plans, each with only a 50% chance of success, the odds of succeeding along one or both paths is 75%. If you have 10 separate paths, and each of which only have a 10% chance of success, the odds of at least one out of those pathways leading to victory is about 65%. I think this is worth internalizing. If you get to play 10 fair coin flips and you win as long as at least one of those coin flips comes up heads, your odds of winning are greater than 99.9%. That's because the formula dictating this sort of game looks like this. Odds of one or more successes equals 1 minus the odds of failure on each flip to the power of the number of flips. As the number of flips gets bigger, the possibility of failure drops off. Just do more stuff, try more things. The world explodes with possibilities. Number 3, related to the previous bullet point, pursuing strategies that yield a broader set of options is usually a good idea, especially if you are early in your journey. More options means more pathways to success. As a corollary, you avoid entering into situations where one of the possible end states is disastrous. You don't just want to maximize expected value, you want to minimize your exposure to catastrophic outcomes. A game where you win $1,000 on heads and die on tails is not one you should be playing. When you look over your decision trees, consider whether there are ways you can avoid or mitigate extremely negative outcomes, or avoid getting into situations where extremely negative outcomes are probable. Unfortunately, the same probabilistic logic in number 2 applies here as well. If you have many different low probability ways to fail catastrophically, the odds of each failure don't have to be too high before your overall odds of a bad outcome increase to intolerable levels. One technique you can employ to avoid catastrophic failure is the Murphy Jitsu, a technique wherein you imagine that you've already failed and then ask yourself why you failed, and then modify your plan to mitigate that particular failure mode. Number 4. An OODA loop means a repeated cycle of observation, orientation, decision, and action. Constantly reassessing what the best course of action should be while keeping your eyes open for superior plans is a very basic strategic tenet. The OODA loop concept was developed by fighter pilots as a way of thinking about dogfighting strategy. Consider that an OODA loop is an ongoing test of your skills in forecasting, prediction, and decision making. Observation and orientation mean analyzing the situation and understanding what possible outcomes are at hand. Decision and action involve choosing the best option out of the available choices, which requires recognizing which option has the best expected value. In other words, every time you cycle through an OODA loop, you're utilizing every single one of the skills we learned in this course. The better your calibration, and the better your level of self-knowledge about your utility valuations over outcomes, the better you'll be at making these iterated decisions. And if a human life consists of thousands of OODA loops, even a slight edge in decision-making skill will accrue huge benefits over time. The word chess master is often used as synonymous for a person who thinks many steps ahead, but chess grandmasters can only think 10 or 15 moves ahead, which sounds like a lot, but the average number of moves in a chess game between high-level players is around 40. So even the best players don't know what they're going to do from the beginning. Instead, a real chess master is constantly operating inside an OODA loop, calculating what can be calculated, but adjusting their plan with each move as well. A good strategist does not, in fact, plan very far into the future. Instead, they navigate using an OODA loop, the constant repeated cycle of observing their circumstances, orienting their strategy to the present lay of the land, deciding what course to take, and acting, then returning to the start of the loop to observe the consequences. Number 5. Avoid zero-sum games. Avoid direct competition. There is one crucial way in which real life is not like chess, poker, or war, and that is, real life is not adversarial unless you make it adversarial. And relatedly, real life is not zero-sum. You do not have to make somebody else lose in order to win at your goals in real life. You can just choose to create value collaboratively. You can, in fact, create so much value that the surplus benefits literally everybody. Treating your life as a contest for the biggest slice of a fixed pie is a recipe for misery. If you can find a way of pursuing your goals without coming into direct conflict with any other people, then you should probably do so. It won't just lower your stress, but it'll increase your odds of success in the long term. There are, of course, an almost unlimited number of strategic heuristics that you could adopt into your thinking and probably benefit from. I selected these 5 because they directly address what I see as the main elements of a decision problem: the definition and valuation of outcomes, the discovery of options, the structuring of the problem, and the assigning of accurate probabilities to the possible outcomes. In other words, there's a deep synergy between these heuristics and the material we've learned in this course, and that should make these rules easier to both remember and apply. If you're interested in taking this course, visit guildoftheRose.org for more details, or patreon.com/guildoftherose to join the guild. Click the link in the sidebar to view the playlist of videos for practical decision making.